bottom line and beyond, where we decode success and define tomorrow. I'm your host, Jayant Kelkar, founder of Sales Fundas, and today we are exploring the future of learning and development in the corporate world. In an era where skills evolve faster than ever, how do we build and nurture future ready teams? To answer this, we have with us a veteran who has shaped professional development across industries for over 2 decades. Our guest is a master trainer in sales, leadership, and behavioral skills, certified in DISC, emotional intelligence, and performance coaching. From banking to healthcare, from storytelling to conflict management, he has transformed countless professionals across sectors. Currently pursuing his ACC pathway from ICF, he continues to push the boundaries of professional development. Please welcome Mr. Amol Sheogaonkar. So, Amol, could you please share a bit about your background and how you transition from a sales professional to becoming a learning and development professional?
Sure, Jayant. Thank you for having me on this podcast. And interesting question, yes. How did I start and how it all began? Way back before almost a couple of decades back. After my MA Economics, MBA Finance, the idea was not to get into sales or marketing. The idea was to become a research analyst or something with finance or equities or debt. But incidentally, the life happens, and so I've been selling financial products all this while. And so career started in Mumbai selling financial products, subsequently moved on to Pune. And it was in 2013 when I was leading a sales team, a region and zone for an asset management company in Pune. I realized that I've been doing the repetitive work a lot. Sales, you are aware that is all relates to educating people. So training was one of the part of my job where I used to train people who are my channel partners, distribution in this distribution segment and all. And so training was something that came very naturally to me. I used to also visit my alma mater to train, to take some training programs there, okay, for
Mhm.
the MDPs. And that is where my independent journey began, but it began like a financial advisor and subsequently transitioned into the training sessions, training segment, where some people know me that I have an ability of delivering training programs. And that's where my journey with them began. So they offered me a few training programs. I jumped on the bandwagon, saying that, okay, fine, this is something I like. So I would continue to do that alongside my financial advisory, but eventually it became the other line of business that I have today. So it's been
Mhm.
almost 10 years that I'm into the corporate training, having trained most of the private sector banks, some very prominent insurance companies, health insurance companies, and again the manufacturing, healthcare, and IT also.
Correct.
And the journey continues to now becoming a coach, where now I'm in process of acquiring my certification with ICF.
Oh, great. I can completely relate with it because during my tenure with one of the leading insurance company, I was also had some training hours to be delivered to the agents, and we had a weekly hours to be delivered to them. I also love training, and one of the reason that I find relationship why I love the training is because that's the area I find a salesperson often does not enjoy because of the kind of nature of the training or the kind of the way it has been delivered and all. So I also kind of tried in kind of making changes so that people start enjoying it, especially the agents, because it's very difficult, that to get the agent for the training and all that thing. How did you deal with this aspect and what inspired you? I understand that you had a passion for it and there was an opportunity, but to sustain this, and this is a very, very tough job. It's a very hardworking job, post, pre, and during the training sessions. So, what inspired you? What keeps you going into this? And I believe you've expanded not only to the sales training, you got into the leadership, soft skills, other complementary aspects also, which becomes a complete package now.
Sure, Jen. So I think what where your question comes from is that how after I transition, how did I sustain it and
Yeah.
realize that this is something that I always wanted to do. So see, some part goes to my background as well because I've seen teachers all around me. So I
Hmm.
generally say this that my family comprises of two kind of people. One are teachers, the other are bankers, and I teach bankers. So the point is somewhere that teaching was always around me.
Mm,
And as I started corporate training, and I was involved, as I told you, that I was a pro bono trainer with my alma mater, and I used to visit them whenever they requested me to come down to the campus and deliver a few training programs for their MDP, specifically onto the sales. And that is where I realized that this is something that I love doing because it helps me or allows me to not only explore what else I can do. Every training program has makes you read, study, explore that subject again. So
yeah.
that also allows me to become a learner. A continuous learning process is always on. So you
Hmm.
don't get bored or you don't get fatigued with whatever you're doing because
Yeah.
every time there's something fresh you're trying to explore.
Correct.
Third, you always meet new set of people. So that's something another exciting aspect of my program that I'm. It's rare that I meet the same participant again and again and again and again, but there are always different participants, different people coming into picture. They all talk to you, so you meet a lot of different kind of people altogether. And the training program for me is more of a conversation that I have with my participants, where I'm trying to help them overcome the challenges that they're having. So they look at training program as a place where they would get some tools, some techniques, some tips or tricks that will allow them to become better. And that particular approach of the participants. So I'll give you a small story that I was training this guy, this person from a liability sales from a private sector bank.
Hmm.
And after the training program ended, they went back onto their job. It was a probationary kind of a post he was on, and they were supposed to do certain training. It was an induction training program. And after 3, 4 months of time, this gentleman sends me a WhatsApp message with his picture and Petronas Tower in Malaysia in the backdrop. And he
Wow.
says, "Thank you, sir. It was because of you, because I achieved my sales target in a campaign that was run. And so I was sent to Malaysia. And it was all because of you." So I said, "Thank you, but I just did my bit. What you did was you applied and you could see the success." So
Correct.
whenever you receive these kind of feedbacks, I mean, off and on, you generally tend to believe that you are doing something right.
Mm.
And of course, it's a pure job where you not only are helping people learn, but you're also learning in the process. So that keeps me going, and now it has become a passion, more of a profession.
Fantastic. I understand. If I can get a sense of what you're trying to do is to create a transformative change through your workshop so that people actually carry practical tools which they can implement and actually make a difference, not just the one side theory download kind of a session which I referred during our initial days where you used to get bored about it. I really really admire that. But that gives me some curiosity in another aspect wherein you come from a finance background. You finance is a very big field as far as India is concerned. How did you choose to focus, or if you can correct me if I'm wrong, to focus highly upon the BFSI sector? Where do you find the growing need for this comprehensive sales and leadership training, especially for the BFSI sector?
Yeah, I mean, now there's some kind of irony out here. I would say that I began as a BFSI trainer because I came from banking and financial services, that too into sales.
Hmm.
You are aware that BFSI is one of the most fastest growing sector with
Yeah,
26% of growth rate year on year. It
yeah.
is one segment which employs a lot of people at different levels, at different functions altogether. With the NBFCs, small finance banks, and other aspects coming into picture, you will see a lot of influx into BFSI segment as well. So a lot of
Mm,
competition, a lot of new product, a lot of new players emerging, a lot of people enjoy getting opportunities from campus, off campus, on campus, and otherwise experienced people also into the BFSI space. So
mhm,
it happened naturally that since I was working with financial services, people thought, okay, fine, I would be better if I teach people from bank BFSI only. And that's how I received that seal of becoming a BFSI sales trainer, process trainer and all. Over the period of time, I also developed a skill set of exploring other aspects into BFSI. So, though if you are on library side, I also explored the assets side. So, talking about other loan products. Then again, there are various other products on the banking services side, which is again
mm,
liability
mm,
products with the bank, asset
mm,
management, insurance product, general insurance product, and so on and so forth. And gradually, as you knew the product, you knew the industry, you knew the pulse of that industry, people started exploring. I also started exploring the other aspect, which is leadership or other
Mm,
corporate soft skill trainings like stakeholder or conflict or change,
mm,
because
mm.
all organizations go through these kind of phases, and everybody needs
Yeah.
to have those kind of skill sets to tide over the change and the conflict and other aspects. So that's how
Correct.
I started to explore. But the interesting aspect is that I can't call myself an exclusive BFSI. Yes, BFSI happens to be my core domain, but
Okay.
beyond that, I've kind of diversified myself into manufacturing, into IT, into healthcare, and other
Wonderful.
sector as well, where I cover projects on behavioral aspects or
Hmm.
leadership or communication, stakeholder, conflict, etc. So so that's how the transition happened. But to say that did I present myself as a specific BFSI trainer? No. It all
Okay.
happened by design, I would say, because people realize that I belong to that industry. They identify that I have that strength, and so it all happened like that.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I can understand when you talk about the BFSI selling skills, whether it's a liability product, asset product, there are other insurance and other products. Those need a specific selling skills. But other topics that you spoke about, whether it's leadership, soft skill, and all, these are industry agnostic. I mean, these are required in every possible industries, every aspect of professional life and even personal life also. So great. I mean, that's fantastic. So how? I mean, what are the common challenges you have recognized or you have identified, which organizations are facing when it comes to the sales performance and the leadership development in those in their organization with the sales team.
Hmm. So challenges, one thing that I've been reading of late a lot, and I've also experienced, and these are some of the questions that have been posed by the one-time, first-time managers or middle-level managers who might train, is that how
Hmm.
do you deal with the new generation of employees that are joining in the companies? Now, typically, these are in the normal corporate lingo, they call them Gen Z.
Yeah.
So the millennials are now controlling the Gen Zs in terms of becoming as a middle manager. I
Hmm.
remember when I began my training career back 10 years back, the question was, how are you going to deal with the millennials? Now the
Hmm.
millennials are into the middle level management and they ask a question, how do I deal with the Gen Z? Okay,
Yeah.
because this new generation of employees who are joining on the brigade are people who have seen the life completely from a different angle that we have done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when possibly me and you were growing up as Generation X, I would like to call ourselves, we looked at a lot of scarcity. So not the kind of working environment they have today. No
Hmm.
gadgets, no
Hmm.
laptops, possibly
Yeah.
no workstations as well. Okay, so
Yeah.
you had to wait for your turn so that the computer is available for you, and then you start working on it. We used to
Correct.
share one system among couple of colleagues. We've seen the places where you have to go down on the ground, knock the doors, and check for the interest into the product.
Yeah.
And that is what is something which is we learned. That's how we learned our sales. We were thrown into the grind, and we were asked to deal with our problems and learn from it. Right? I
Yeah.
remember even
Yeah.
my first job. I was asked to make a few phone calls to our client without telling me what am I supposed to be asking them or which product I'm selling, and that's how you learn. But now the
Yeah.
dynamics have changed. Now the dynamics have changed, as in that when a person joins in the workforce, he already has is already on some kind of understanding in terms of his
Hmm.
qualification, in terms of his degree, in terms of
Hmm.
the lifestyle that he's living, and so they have become more aspirational. So the challenge that a lot of people generally talk about when I'm talking about leadership, first time managers or middle level managers, how do we deal with this new generation of employees that are coming on board? Because they are
Hmm.
too way too aspirational, I would
Yeah.
say way too impulsive in terms of their attitude towards the work,
Hmm.
possibly.
Hmm.
Uh, the third part is they're spoiled of choices. So there are
Hmm.
many players in the market. You leave this job and you will immediately get the other one.
Yeah.
Possibly the way of working, the expectation from the way of working they have is different. So this is one
Hmm.
challenge that I see when I'm talking about middle level managers or the new managers, and how do
Hmm.
you deal with this new generation because they're not used to those kind of hardship grinds that possibly the millennial or people like you and me have been through.
Correct.
That's one part. Secondly, the business environment, the models, and everything else is changing so
Yeah.
fast that the change itself has become a lot challengeable, or rather challenging for employees and for the companies altogether. Okay, the
Hmm.
products are changing, the customer behavior is changing, the market dynamics are changing, the way people do business is changing, the pricing is
Yeah.
changing, and so How do you cope up with this kind of change? And when you talk about the third part, when you talk about the aspirational crowd that is coming on board, people who
Mm.
are a little impulsive, ambitious, but at the same time try to do smart work, the
Mm.
possibility of conflicts arise. So how do you manage
Yeah.
those conflicts with the team? How so ideally, if I had to put it into a nutshell, how do you create a team that is not only effective but a team that makes an impact on everything, be from the
Yeah.
consumer to the company value system and everything else, following that value system, product, companies, revenue, and everything else. So, how do you create that set of team? Is I think the larger challenge that a lot of people are looking at it, and how do you make that team efficient to deliver the expected?
Absolutely. I think this is the age 2024, and for the next couple of years, you'll have this generation gap transition happening because this is exactly the time when people born in 2000, around that period, are now getting into the workforce, and the old people are now getting into the third stage of their professional life. So I clearly understand what you're trying to say. And it's a big challenge, it's not easy to handle. And I think that's where your inputs on the soft skill, leadership, a couple of other aspects in terms of emotional intelligence and all those comes handy when dealing with these challenges. So
So I
interesting.
just read a post. I read a post today on LinkedIn by
Mm.
a very seasoned individual who happens to be who retired as a CEO of a company, and he was asked the same question that what change do you see from the time you used to work and from the time we are working. So he
Mm.
said that I knew my career progression that I need to be with the company, and I started with a manager and became a CEO.
Mm.
I used to have an in and out file, a table, a chair, pen, scale, files,
Mm.
all those
Mm.
kind of
Mm.
things. Now you
Mm.
don't see them anymore
Yeah.
in your office.
Yeah.
The generation has grown up with gadgets. So the
Correct.
technology all around them has become more of a need rather than something which is desirable now. So yeah, a lot of changes have come in, and that's where I think a lot of employees or employers or companies are grappling with how do you deal with it.
Correct. Absolutely. So what is the, I mean, I did come across, there are two very interesting aspect in your profile or in your expertise. One is the disc, the behavioral aspect of it, and one is the EQ plus or emotional quotient plus. Would you like to just explain what these two things and how these two things are also important when you talk about overall development of a professional?
So so DISC is basically a behavioral assessment. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I am a certified DISC trainer, which means I went through the certification process of understanding what DISC is and how it applies to people and what
Mm-hmm.
you need to identify from DISC. So
Mm-hmm.
this basically talks about there are four predominant behavioral styles available or seen among the people, and every behavioral style has its own strengths and weaknesses. So now, how do we apply this? Because as like yesterday I delivered a sales training program, and that is where the disc came handy, where I told them that since you are going to reach out to a client, your client could be from D behavioral style or D is for dominant, which has got a different characteristics. I is another called influential behavioral aspect, which is
Mm-hmm.
another which has got another characteristics. S stands for stable, which has
Mm-hmm.
a different kind of behavioral characteristics, and C stands for consensus, which has got a different kind of characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
So we explain that these are the characters and these are the characteristics of these characters. These are the strengths and the weaknesses of the character. And if you understand the behavioral aspect of other person or his behavioral style of the other person, it becomes easier for you as a salesperson or a person if you are a manager to deal with these people
Mm-hmm.
because you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know their drivers, you know what puts them off, you know what is their, what are the threats and what are the opportunities for them. And so,
Correct.
if you understand the behavioral styles, you will be able to mold your own self according to their behavioral style, preferred behavioral
Mm-hmm.
style. And then, if you are able to do that, you will end up having a better relationship with them. That's one part when this comes into picture.
Mm-hmm.
That certification allowed me to look at sales training or any training which is related to humans uh, in a very different way, saying that okay, fine, I as a salesperson, I can have a different kind of behavioral style vis-a-vis my customer, and how do I mold myself to match it with him,
Mm-hmm.
to create a better relationship. EQ is called emotional quotient, as you rightly said. It talks about emotional intelligence of an individual. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
where we look at the four different competencies, emotional competencies that one should have, which is how do you make yourself self aware of your emotions, because your emotions we as human beings, our emotions are predominant play a predominant part when we make a decision. Sometimes we become impulsive, sometimes we are fearful and make a decision, and sometimes, and all these decision making has some kind of impact on other relationship with people. So the
Certainly.
EQ plus talks about four aspects, four competencies that you must be self-aware of your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Once you are aware of your emotion, you should be able to manage them well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm talking about the Travis Bradbury and York Reeves model of it. You should be able to manage your emotions well. That is self-management.
Mm-hmm.
Third is social awareness, that not only your emotions matter, but other people's emotions also matter. So you
Yeah.
should also be equipped to understand other people's emotions, their triggers, and the way they are reacting. And if
Mm-hmm.
you do all the three things right, you will be able to identify or master the fourth competency, which is relationship management. So if
Okay.
you are self-aware, you will be able to manage your emotions well. If you are
Yeah.
able to manage your emotions well, you will also be able to be aware of the other person's emotions, and which will subsequently turn into or result into a better relationship management with the people. So these two are core human-oriented approaches or frameworks that allows us to to train people on different aspects of people management. That's how these two things work.
Oh, fantastic. Uh, the way you explained me the disc part of it, I could recall something which is about personality types.
Mm.
Now, I may be getting confused between the two. Would you
Mm.
just briefly touch upon the difference or the similarities between these two? Because I have gone through the training in terms of reading the personality types and then respond to them during my sales training a long time ago. So, do you see a difference in that or similar?
So DISC is called behavioral styles. So behavioral is something which is soft, which can be changed. So you are not the
Mm-hmm.
same person as you were when you were 15-year-old. So
Mm-hmm.
your behavior has changed. You are now at a stage where you know how to manage your emotions, how to manage your behavioral style, so that you can adopt and accommodate within a set of group of
Mm-hmm.
people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this talks about it. So this talks about the larger four behavioral styles. Behavioral style, I'm not talking about personality styles,
Got it.
because behavior can be changed. I
Mm-hmm.
could be a C, which I
Mm-hmm.
am. So I went through the assessment and I realized that I'm a C behavioral style, which is conscientious, who's
Mm-hmm.
more analytical in nature, more meticulous, more detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean that I do not have the I, D, and S part.
Correct.
Okay. Now, if I understand my behavioral style well and I understand your behavioral style well, although I might be C, but I should be able to mold myself so that I can become more influential if I need to have, or become more dominant if the situation requires me, or become stable if the situation requires me or the person requires me. That is behavioral style. Uh, I haven't read much about the personality oriented. There are certain assessments which assess the personality, but I think
Mm-hmm.
personality is more hardwired. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that you are growing up with, and it doesn't change from time to time. So if you have been a
Okay.
personality since your childhood, you won't change it uh,
Mm-hmm.
as it is. So it's more
Mm-hmm.
hardwired, but behavior can be changed as you go ahead, as you change your positions in corporate, in your society,
Mm-hmm.
the functions that you take up, the people you meet, the network you do. So this is a difference, largely a difference between the behavior
Okay.
and the personality.
So the disc that you referred to just now is there are four characters or the four
Behavioral
types,
style,
and
behavioral styles.
one would be dominant for everybody, and there would be three others will also be there, but those are not the dominant. They are also there. So I may be dominant in maybe I, but D and S and C are also there with me. Am I correct?
So I won't use the word dominant because I may say, if let's say if your behavioral style is D, which is dominant,
Mm-hmm.
okay, which could be 40% of your behavior, but
Mm-hmm.
rest 20% could be S, C, and I also.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So
Got it.
your I would call it your preferred behavior style would be dominant, or your largely demonstrated style would be dominant. But you
Mm-hmm.
also have some component of I, S, and C.
Correct. Correct.
I could be a predominantly C as a behavioral
Mm-hmm.
style,
Mm-hmm.
but I would also have some amount of S, D, and I.
Okay. Fair enough. So let's talk about some of the tips and tactics sales professional can use to improve their personality or some of the things that they can quickly take. So, what are those tips that you would want to give it to the professionals to improve upon their communication or their behavioral style when it comes to sales or in office or working with a team? Because we already highlighted about the generational transition, and I think behavioral does come heavily on that side.
So I always say that I believe in four P's. You are aware that in those classes also. The four P's, and I can apply to sales as well. And I'm always a believer that even for a sales calls, you need these four P. Okay.
Mhm.
The first P stands for planning.
Okay.
I think it's very important for any sales guy coming from any department, any function, any sector, to be prepared to plan for the next sales call. And that's where understanding your client, his needs, his segment, his profile, his catchment, his aspiration is important. So you plan. You plan your value proposition as well as so what is it that you're going to talk about, because not every you can't go about selling the same thing to each and every client.
Mhm.
Every client is different. Every
Mhm.
customer is different. So
Mhm.
planning is something that every salesperson should get involved with before he goes out for a sales call. Okay. Then prepare. So preparation again before the sales call. So preparation, I would rather say in hard and soft form. So when I say
Mhm.
hard form, I always recommend people to have a proper folder organized with yourself. These days they are using tablets and these days they are using laptop, which has made life more easier compared to
Right.
the way we were. That we used to carry a
Correct.
bag with a notepad, planner, pen, pencil, eraser, sharpener, the stapler, pins, punching machine, and all those kind of things just to do the documentation or application form,
Correct.
product notes, POPs. These days, if you do not have POPs, that's fine, but have a visiting card, the card displayed in your neck, carry your sales
Mm-hmm.
kit together. That's preparation. On the software side, just go through your product variants and product notes because there are things which are changing in terms of regulation. If you are from BFSI space, if you are not from BFSI space, then there could be some features which are changing, some offers might be changing. There could be some discounts available, the pricing might have changed. Okay, some kind of key points might have changed. So prepare on that.
Mm-hmm.
Third P stands for perform. So performance means when you reach out to the client, how do you build rapport with him? How do you shake hands? What kind of body language you demonstrate? Do you actually demonstrate confidence on your face or not? Are you making an eye contact or not? Are you actually listening to him carefully, asking right questions to understand his need and necessities, his pain areas, his motivations and triggers, and how do you perform on that? Okay. Then again, performance also relates to the kind of pitch you get. So have you
Mm-hmm.
structured your pitch properly with identifying larger value proposition suitable for your client's needs and offering it and closing it down, handling objections appropriately by using a few techniques like field felt found or boomerang, or if you prefer any other techniques. And finally, perform. Or rather, I would say, is uh, more to do with how you track your numbers. So unless you have an eye on your numbers as to how many leads you're generating, whether you're approaching out
Mm-hmm.
all the leads, whether leads are getting converted, not
Mm-hmm.
converted, who are the people who are in the bucket, actually you're creating a sales funnel or not. So if you don't actually see the performance on the basis of the numbers you are generating, you are losing your track. So in
Correct.
my opinion, to just summarize the answer, always we believe in four P's, which is plan, prepare, present, and perform. So this is what a salesperson should always keep in mind, and that's what my submission is to all salespeople now.
Fantastic. I think that's a fundamental of success in sales or for any field for that matter. Great. So, what are the trend? I mean, we have already spoke about the generational transition. We already spoke about the phenomenal change or new products coming up every now and then in the sector and in all industries and businesses. So, what are the trend do you foresee as far as the future of the sales training, and how do the organization look forward to them, or how do your organization prepare for them?
Okay, now so far the sales training has always been strictly around the processes. The
Mm,
kind of the way I've started. So they used to talk about a typical 2, 3 days, 4 days kind of a training program or 5 days kind of a training program, typically induction training programs, because largely sales induction teams require this kind of training programs initially.
mm,
And you take them around the product and processes, and then you tell them about how do you behave in front of the client and stuff. That has been very structured way of doing it, where you take them through all the sales process step by step. Okay? But going forward, I think it's important for the salesperson to understand how to negotiate. Now, if you may want to use few to, to negotiation techniques like Batna, Zopa, or reverse
Mhm.
pricing or mirroring or all those kind of things which suddenly come into picture. Because end of the day, no sales conversation completes without negotiation. I think that's
Mhm.
going to be future. A lot
Yeah.
of us leave it at the objection handling part, but I think the negotiation would be a more polished way of telling people that this is one integral part of any sales conversation.
Correct.
Another part is where a salesperson should develop his emotional intelligence, where he should be able to connect with the client on an emotional level also. Because
Mhm.
unless he connects with the client on an emotional level, the client does not believe that you understand him.
Yeah.
In the absence of belief, you end up having a lack of trust. And if a salesperson is not able to win the trust of the customer, believe me, the customer will not call you back again.
Mhm.
That's the second part. I think they must understand when you're talking about. Third, I think sales training can also get transformed with something called critical analysis or critical thinking aspect of it, analytical critical thinking, because a salesperson should also focus on what a competitor is doing, what you are doing, or
Mhm.
can I innovate with a solution? Can I bring some new element into the solution that I'm offering to my target customer? I think
Right.
these three things, if any sales training incorporates within themselves. So, so negotiations, uh, of course, emotional intelligence and critical and analytical thinking. I think these three aspects, three skill set, would help a salesperson go a long way.
Fantastic. I think we have covered almost everything that is related to this learning and development and specifically to the sales and what are the other aspects and tips and tricks. Uh, Pretty sure that all the listeners who are with us so far must have understood the one of the biggest challenge, the generational transition, the other development that are happening, the technological interventions which are happening in the training and sales. So there must be a solid need, and they must look at learning and development training as the top priority item and be there in the calendar. So I don't want them to be left thinking where should they go. So I would request you, why don't you share your contact details and where they can connect with you to explore possibilities of their training needs, and as well as possibly engage with you to get your help on that.
Sure. Thank you, Jen. So my preferred way of engagement or preferred way of reaching out to me would be on LinkedIn. I'm available on the LinkedIn, Amol Sheogaonkar. And I know for sure that this is the only unique name because there are no multiple Amol Sheogaonkars there. So if you search me on the LinkedIn, you will find me there. That's way.
Correct.
And LinkedIn profile carries my contact number, which is 99237
Mhm.
97609. This is my
Mhm.
WhatsApp contact as well as telephonic contact, only one contact. And of course, they can write me on amolhi@gmail.com, keeping things very simple, amolhi at gmail.com. These are three ways they can approach me. And as I said, that I like to keep things simple, straight. And so these are three mechanisms through which they can reach out to me and they can have a conversation on this.
Samol, thank you so much for your time, sharing your inputs, tips, and tricks. Wonderful discussion, and I'm sure the listeners must have got a clear understanding and importance of why learning and development on a consistent basis is important. Any last word from your side before we conclude?
The only thing that I would say that from the time that we started our career till today, the avenues of learning and development have vastly increased. So you have offline programs, you have online programs, you have portals that allow you to go through certification programs. You got access to some of the greatest universities across the world. My recommendation to both the employer and the employees to make best of these facilities available, because learning and
Mm,
development is something that will help you, allow you to be future ready,
yeah.
to upgrade yourself, your skill sets in such a way that is going to be the more relevant aspects in or relevant skill sets for the future. Even for the learners or participants listening to me or employees listening to me, that if your employer is investing on you through the learning and development program, please make best use of it and use it as a place where you are free to make mistakes and learn from them, because it's a safe environment in the classroom. your trainer or your facilitator is someone who's there to help you, investing his time, energy, and everything else. So make best use of it, because whatever you learn comes out of experience of the facilitator. And it's always better to learn from other person's mistake than committing them yourself and doing it. So I think for me, learning and development has to be the integral part of any corporation's operations, and the thrust should be given, and the participant should take it from for themselves, and welcome it with both the hands if they want to really be future ready.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you so much, Amol, once again. And I'll share our contact details in the description and during the podcast introduction on different platforms so that they can get in touch with you. And I will come back to you to touch upon, because this is a very vast subject. BFSI itself is a phenomenal big industry. So I'll keep coming back to you on your value adds from their side. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks a lot. Looking forward.